Good afternoon, everybody. If I just run through quickly the rules that we adopt for people who are joining online. I know there are a couple of people already online, and then there are some people who may be joining later on. So just to remind you that you need to be muted throughout the meeting unless you are asked to speak, and then at that point you unmute yourself, say whatever it is that you have to say, and then mute yourself again when you have finished. If you do want to speak, if you can press the virtual hand on the screen, and we'll keep an eye on the screens and try and make sure that we call you in order, but please don't speak until you are asked to. If you do need to have your camera on at all times. I'm conscious, I know that at least one of our members joining is not very well, so I'll just be keeping an eye, and if you do have to leave, we'll just make sure we know when you're here and when you're not. But if you do have to leave the meeting, you'll recognise that you aren't able to vote on any item where you haven't heard the full debate. When we come to the recommendations, I will call out your name and then ask you to give your vote orally so that we can record that as part of the voting process. So that's the end of my announcements, Mr. Mayor. So if I could ask everybody else to turn off their screens so that we can just see the members on screen. And then if Democratic Services can mute everybody, and then I'll hand over to you, Mr. Mayor, to start the meeting proper.
Thank you, Monitor Officer. Renowned Croeso. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Merthyr Tydfil County Borough Council full council meeting on Wednesday, the 5th of February 2025. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and may be broadcast via the authority's internet site. The images and sound recording may also be used for training purposes within the authority. First item, item 1, apologies for absence, please.
I have apologies from Councillor Kevin Gibbs.
Councillor Geraint Thomas.
Councillor Clive Tevy, and also 3 of my colleagues are running late. Councillor Barry, Councillor Hughes and Councillor Simmons.
Thank you, Councillor Thomas. Councillor David Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor David Isaacs.
Thank you. That's it?
I think that's it.
Yep.
Councillor Metton, did you indicate that?
No. Yeah,
you were going to say this.
Okay, item 2, declarations of interest. Members are reminded of their personal responsibility to declare any personal or prejudicial interest in respect of matters contained in this agenda in accordance with the provisions of the Local Government and Finance Act 1992 related to council tax, Local Government Act 2000, Council's Constitution and the Members' Code of Conduct. Members are reminded that they must identify the item number and subject matter that their interest relates to and signifies the nature of personal interest. And where members withdraw from the meeting as a consequence of the disclosure of a prejudicial interest, they must notify the Mayor when they leave. Any declarations of interest, please?
While Councillor Barry sits down, shall I say that we have we have declaration of interest from Councillor David Hughes in items 4, 5, and then one of the exempt items, which it's 17. Yes, so if we can record that he has declared those interests, and then once Councillor Barry has settled himself, he can tell us his.
Sorry. Item 6, contract procedure rules. I contract with the authority, so I'll be withdrawing.
Thank you, Councillor Barry. Okay, we move on to item 3, minutes of previous meetings. To prove as accurate the minutes of the meetings, we have a mover, please. Leader?
Happy to move the minutes, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Leader. Do we have a seconder, please?
Happy to second, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor George. Can we take that to the vote then, please, members?
And can I ask those online, just so that I make sure that I ask the right people who were online. So Councillor Gareth Richards, are you for, against or abstaining?
For.
Councillor Gareth Richards?
For.
Thank you. Councillor Paula Layton, are you for, against or abstaining?
For.
Sorry, if we stop the voting for a moment. Councillor Geraint Thomas?
Yeah, I thought we got questions first.
We don't normally, no.
Can I raise a point then?
Yes, of course you can, yeah.
The minutes.
Thank you. In the minutes, number 470, it says resolve that there is nothing there in that box. Oh, right, okay.
As detailed in.
Right, okay. Thank you.
All right. Unless anybody else indicates to speak, we'll go back to the vote. So I had Councillor Gareth Richards votes. Councillor Paula Layton, are you for, against or abstaining?
For.
Thank you. And Councillor Lee Davis, are you for, against or abstaining?
For.
Thank you. And then if all members can then vote, please. Councillor Preston, can you? There we are. That's carried, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Officer. We on to item 4 of the agenda. Proposed new statutory framework for youth work. Consider the report of the Director of Social Services, Councillor Louise Minnaert-Vaux, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In 2021, the Welsh Government's Youth Work Strategy Implementation Board produced the Time to Deliver for Young People in Wales report, which clarified the need for more robust legislation for youth work. The resulting draft guidance, the new statutory framework for youth work, is before us today. A clear breakdown of the obligations and consequences of the local authority will face can be found in sections 4 and 5. The feedback that officers have drafted can be found in the appendix. Officers are here today if there's any specific questions in relation to the feedback that has been given. It is worth reinforcing that this is a milestone and not the destination on the framework's journey. I refer you to point 6.2 of the report for the timeline to projected commencement in 2026. This is particularly pertinent as there will be a future report identifying if there are any fiscal consequences for the Council to consider. I'd like to move the recommendations in 2.1. The contents of the report be noted and the new statutory requirements placed on the local authority if the draft guidance is approved by Welsh Government. 2.2. The consultation response to the draft statutory guidance be approved. And 2.3. A further report to be submitted in 12 months outlining the future financial implications based upon the first year's work to prepare the plan be approved. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Minnaert-Vaux. Do we have a seconder, please? Councillor Jamie Scriven.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to second the recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Scriven. Any questions from members, please? Councillor Michelle Simmons.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just some clarity, that's all. On 2.2, the consultation response be approved, but at 6.1, the response date for the submission of that consultation response was the January the 10th. So I'm a little bit confused as to why we're approving something that's already been submitted.
It's been submitted in draft to Welsh Government, but it's subject to council approval. So any amendments can be revised and sent back in to Welsh Government.
Brilliant. Okay. Thank you, Chris. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Simmons. Any further questions, please? No? Any comments? Councillor Jamie Scriven.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I just want to say a quick few words. It's just in terms of like what we do as an authority for young people. You know, I think in Merthyr Tydfil we strive for excellence when we support our young people. You know, we're one of the only authorities currently supporting a Youth Mayor initiative. You know, and we formally recognise young people within our own constitution as part of scrutiny as well, which is quite rare. I know myself and Councillor Mitten were able to meet with MT Boyth yesterday to discuss things around how we operate as a council and support them to be further involved in our work. And the reason I bring this up is, as it's outlined in 4.1, you know, this strategy is all about improving the voice and opportunities for young people and how we move forward with a 5-year strategic plan co-produced with young people. So just really happy to see, you know, the movement coming through that's come from the Youth Work Interim Board and now Welsh Government, and really happy to see this, and something I hope that the full council can support.
Thank you, Councillor Scrimmins. Any other comments, please? No. Okay, take it to the vote, please.
Thank you. Councillor Gareth Richards, are you for, against or abstaining?
For.
Thank you. Councillor Paula Layton, are you for, against or abstaining?
For.
Thank you. And Councillor Lee Davis, are you for, against or abstaining?
For.
Thank you. And if everyone else can then go ahead and vote. That's carried, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Excuse me. Move on to item 5, coordinated admission arrangements. To consider the report, Director of Education, Councillor Gareth Lewis, please.
Coordinated admission arrangements for 2027-28 relate to a new Welsh Government regulation placed on local authorities for school admission arrangements. The new regulation requires local authorities to provide one common application form for parents or carers to complete, regardless of which school within the local authority they wish to attend, and to provide better arrangements for cross-border applications. The new arrangements are outlined in Appendix 1 of the report, and I wish to highlight 2 main changes. Firstly, the local authority will now receive applications from our faith school, Bishop Carlos Acutis, and will support the school with the application process, although the school will retain decision-making in respect of offering places. Secondly, and the next main change, will provide a more cohesive approach to cross-border applications, where parents apply to schools in more than one local authority. Cross-border preferences will now be known and shared across each local authority. I would like to move the recommendations as outlined in 2.1 and 2.2 of the report. 2.1, adoption of the coordinated admissions arrangements for academic year 27-28 be approved. And 2.2, the delegation of authority for the annual adoption of these arrangements to the Director of Education, unless there are changes to the arrangement, be approved. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Lewis. Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor David Jones.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Happy to second.
Thank you, Councillor. Any questions from members, please? Any comments? Take it to the vote then, members, please.
Thank you. Councillor Gareth Richards, are you for, against or abstaining?
For.
Thank you. Councillor Paula Layton, are you for, against or abstaining?
For.
Thank you. Councillor Lee Davis, are you for, against or abstaining?
For.
Thank you. If other members could go ahead and vote, please. And that's carried, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Monitor Officer. Item 6 on the agenda, contract procedure rules. To consider the report of the Director of Finance, Councillor Anna Williams-Price, please.
Thank you. As members will see from the report, we have had our current contract procedure rules in place for over 3 years, during which they have been a framework for ensuring that our over 100 billion annual spend is dispensed in a correct and systematic manner by officers. However, changes in the legal landscape through the Social Partnerships and Public Procurement Wales Act 2023 and the Procurement Act 2023 now mean that we have updated our rules. The most significant revisions are detailed in points 4.1 to 4.13 of the report. And along with the many technical changes, it was particularly welcome to see regards to social value featuring, which moves us beyond purely financial indicators of value and builds on earlier guidance pertaining to community benefit and the Wellbeing of Future Generations Act. I would like to give my thanks to Paul Davis for his work in this area and providing a presentation to members last week on this topic. I would therefore like to move the recommendation of 2.1, the contract procedure rules commencing on the same date of the Procurement Act, be approved.
Thank you, Councillor Williams-Price. Do we have a seconder, please? Leader?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Happy to second the recommendation set out in 2.1 of the report.
Thank you. Any questions from members, please? No? Any comments? Councillor Michelle Simmons.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to say a huge thank you to Paul for his tenacious work in this space. The contract value that comes through the council is, as we know, an extortionate amount. And yeah, a huge thanks to Paul for his work in this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Simmons. Any further comments? No. Okay, we take it to the vote then, please.
Thank you. Councillor Gareth Richards, are you for, against or abstaining?
For.
Thank you. Councillor Paula Leighton, for, against or abstaining?
For.
Thank you. Councillor Lee Davis, for, against or abstaining?
For.
Thank you. If other members can vote, please. And that's carried, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. We just wait for Andrew. Okay, move on to item 7, revision to the minimum revenue provision. To consider the report of the Director of Finance, Councillor Anna Williams-Price, please.
Thank you. Local authorities are obligated to charge a minimum revenue provision annually to meet the cost of debt accrued in the year. Given the many economic challenges that we and many other councils face, including inflation and raised interest rates, it is prudent to review the MRP to ensure it is financially sound. Last autumn, we instructed our Treasury Management consultants, Arlene Close, to conduct an arm's length review, and today's report presents their advice, and we seek council mandate to adopt that today. In brief, the proposal is that the current approach of the MRP through the asset life annuity method be maintained, as this provides the best budgetary returns over the next 2 years. And it is prudent that for capital expenditure occurred after 31st of March 2007, we change the expenditure approach to over the period of the expected useful life of the asset on an annuity basis. I therefore move recommendation 2.1 that the MRP based on the asset life annuity method remain unchanged, and 2.2 revision to the MRP approach for the 24-25 financial year, whereby capital expenditure incurred after 31st of March 2007 and thereafter, the MRP is determined by charging the expenditure over the expected useful life of the relevant asset on an annuity basis using the PWLB certainty rate starting in the year after the asset becomes operational, be approved.
Thank you, Councillor Williams-Price. Seconder, please, Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Happy to second the recommendations set out in 2.1 and 2.2 of the report.
Thank you, Leader. Any questions on the agenda item, please? Councillor Clive Jones.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. On page 118, 5.2, and there's a table going up to 27-28. And on the front of the report, the years 24-25 and 25-26 are listed. So for the years 26-27 and 27-28, are those figures definitely what it's likely to be, or is it at this stage a good estimate?
Thank you, thank you, Councillor Jones. Those figures have been calculated on our current liability to debt for previous capital investments. Any capital investments that we make after those 25, 26 will factor into that, and that will impact on those figures.
Yeah. So they may change one way or the other.
That's correct, yes.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Jones?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Andrew Barry, please.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Very similar to what Councillor Jones has asked, really, in terms of when we brought the original report in 2019, changing it from equal instalment method to life annuity. It was quite a prudent move, but we did the same thing in 2019. We put a specific amount. And when you look at the Public Works Loan Board compared to the Bank of England, wouldn't that be more stable? And when we do put a figure, shouldn't it have parameters around it because of the fluctuations in the market?
Use of the PWB is relevant to the actual time that the asset became useful. So it is the most prudent indicator.
Yeah.
There is no restriction on us of revisiting our method in future years. But it is a prudent approach with using the PWL prevailing rate rather than the 2% target of the Bank of England.
Mm. My only concern with it would be you're talking about vast sums of money, and a fluctuation of 1% in there would mean a massive change to any plans that may be made in the medium-term financial plans.
Obviously, it would be the PWB at the rate when those assets become useful the year after. So we would reflect on that, and we would use those rates because it would be the best indication. It would reflect as well the regards to the cost of borrowing that we incur for those assets. So it is relevant. A number of other authorities have implemented a change to the annuity rate, and they also have used the PWLB prevailing rate for calculating the minimum revenue provision.
Okay, thanks very much.
Thank you, Councillor Barry. Any further questions? So, go on to comments then, please. No comments? Okay, we take it to the vote. Members, please.
Councillor Gareth Richards, are you for, against or abstaining?
For.
Thank you. Councillor Paula Leighton, are you for, against or abstaining?
For.
Thank you. Councillor Lee Davis, are you for, against or abstaining?
For.
Thank you. And if other members could then vote, please. And that, oh, sorry, Councillor Darren Roberts. Yeah, there we are. You just wouldn't work. Yeah. That's carried, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. So we move on to item 8 of the agenda, Treasury Management Half-Year Review Report 2024-2025. To consider the report of the Director of Finance, Councillor Anna Williams-Price, please.
Thank you. The Council is committed to the Treasury Management Code of Practice from the Chartered Institute for Public Finance and Accountancy, and to meet our obligation, the Council must provide a mid-year Treasury Management Report, which is obviously the item before us this evening. Members will find that the narrative in Appendix 1 comprehensively covers Treasury activity for the first 6 months of 24-25, including an overview of the economic landscape through to borrowing and investments and their implications. All councillors were invited to attend a presentation from Arlene Close on the subject of Treasury Management. For those able to attend, I hope it provided suitable assurance on the Council's approach. And for those unable to attend, we hope to run more regular sessions in future so members can be confident in their role in our Treasury Management strategy. I'd like to thank our officers for their efforts and also the advice of our Treasury Management experts, Arlene Close. I will move the recommendation at 2.1 that the Treasury Management Mid-Year Report, including Treasury and Prudential Indicators for 24-25, be received and noted.
Thank you, Councillor Williams-Price. Do we have a seconder, please? Councillor Louise Millard-Vaux.
Yeah, happy to second the recommendation.
Thank you. Any questions, please? Any comments? No? Okay, we take it to the vote, members, please.
Councillor Gareth Richards, are you for, against or abstaining?
For.
Thank you. Councillor Paula Leighton, are you for, against or abstaining?
For.
Thank you. And Councillor Lee Davis, are you for, against or abstaining?
For.
Thank you. Could other members please vote then? And that's carried, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Move on to item 9, Cyfarthfa Castle redevelopment. To consider the report of the Chief Executive. Councillor Jamie Scriven, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. What I'd like to do is just give everyone a brief summary as best as I can, just to go through the timeline really of where we've been in terms of the castle redevelopment, just for all councillors to have a refresher. So just in terms of where we've been since of 2021, obviously the authority and the Cyfarthfa Foundation began working together to realise the vision for Cyfarthfa Castle, the estate as outlined within the Cyfarthfa plan, of which we then sought to appoint an experienced professional team who would look at the historic buildings and conduct a thorough condition survey on a budget condition report as outlined in 3.2. So as of December that year in 21, Purcell was then appointed to undertake the condition survey, and that was to include a review of the condition of all elements of the historic fabric and architectural features of the castle, but also the constraints connected with the building and the immediate landscape surrounding it. So in October of 2022 then, that condition survey was finalised and presented to the various departments within the council, to CADW and to TCF2, and that survey was then used to inform the design requirements of a temporary roof, of which you can see the further detail of 5.2 onwards regarding the commissioning process around that. At the end of 2022, we're moving into 23. There were emergency works that were needed to be undertaken on the castle that were funded by CADW and the council, including the temporary roof repairs, drainage and guttering clearance. This was done to prevent further damage to the structure and allow the start of the drying out process to begin. So as of November 2023 then, the council approved the recommendation to proceed with the next stage of design work and investigations in line with option 1 of our previous report, which called for the full coverage of the entire structure within a purpose-built temporary roof using scaffold details, and all this is outlined at 4.4 onwards. As of February 2024, Purcell was then appointed to project manage the delivery of that scheme. This included developing, finalising and agreeing a lump sum price, risk register and work information and programme for the construction of the work within budget and to programme. The council secured a grant of £58,712 from CADW to undertake further emergency works, and all those works then completed by the end of March 2024, as agreed, with the exception though of the repairs to the museum above the basement. This is due to issues that were identified, which resulted in discussions with CADW and GAT, and this has delayed work on site significantly and resulted in an increased cost. Which then brings us obviously to this year. So as of February of this month, an expression of interest will be submitted jointly from the council and from the Cyfarthfa Foundation to the National Lottery Heritage Fund, which is outlined at 8.3. Following this, a drainage tender is going to be issued in March, and the drainage work is intended to provide that long-term permanent solution then for the castle and be an improvement on the drainage system for Arthur Park as a whole. The contract for the drainage will be awarded in May, with the contract duration that's yet to be determined. If successful without expression of interest to the Natural Lottery Heritage Fund, the development stage application will take 2 years to complete and will be submitted shortly. That kind of takes us up to present day where we are at the moment now with the redevelopment, including any specific actions that have happened since 2021. But if I can just finally draw your attention to 1.14 within the summary, just to outline that, of course, there are financial risks to the authority, which will be dependent on the next stage of work and the procurement exercises due to be undertaken. And this is in relation to the drainage works contract. But these costs will be covered through the capital programme, as there's currently capital aligned to the Cyfarthfa Heritage Area within the medium-term financial plan. So just one recommendation on this report, Mr Mayor. I just move my page down to it. So at 2.1, That is that the officer's progression with the phased approach be approved. I so move.
Thank you, Councillor Scriven. Do we have a seconder, please? Councillor Gareth Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to second the recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lewis. Are there any questions, please? Councillor Clive Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd start off with my first question, which is not mentioned in the report, but I think it's very relevant. And that is, we were advised sometime last year that the CCTV cameras would be operated around the building. Can I ask someone if that's the case, and are they all functioning?
I can pick that up. Yep. So we are in discussions with Ryan Evans and the CCTV team at the moment around cameras for the castle. So that's something we're meeting on very shortly, I think in the next week or so, and we're looking to implement as soon as possible. We do appreciate that there's security within the park, but we feel with recent vandalism, etc., that we do feel they're required around the building itself. So that will be our key focus in the first instance.
Thanks. Hopefully that'll be as soon as possible. One other question is, having read the report, Mr. Mayor, clearly the museum, when eventually work starts, will be affected, the museum itself. And there's currently disabled access through the what we used to call in school the quadrangle, and the cafe area also has an outside part of it. I presume that because scaffolding will be erected all around it, that the museum won't be able to function in that respect, because that area will be builders there and scaffolding. Is that the case?
So at this point in time, it's very early to say. I think what we should note at this point, though, is for any design works we'd be looking at ensuring the museum provision can still operate as best as possible through any works period, and we would also consider any DDA accessibility as part of that as well. Because you are right, that's one of the key areas to access through the courtyard area. So we would be very considerate of all of those components when we are undertaking those works. But we're at the very early stage at the moment in terms of seeking approval tonight to continue through our phased approach. So of course that's something we'd be feeding into any contract that we'd like to ensure the museum remains in operation as best as possible.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Mayor, can I take you to page 134, paragraph 1.13, and just read the first part of that. Discussions have commenced with funders, and an expression of interest will be submitted jointly from the Council and the Cavartha Foundation to the National Lottery Heritage Fund in February this year, with a view, if successful, with the expression of interest, to submit a development stage application in August 25. Can you explain what it means by applying for this? Because what is the development stage? What does that entail?
No problem. So the expression of interest that will go in February is a document outlining what our proposals are. So it's very, very high level strategic ask to the National Lottery Heritage Fund. If they give a green light on that expression of interest, you submit what's called then a stage 1 application, which is your development stage application. So we'd need the next few months between February, when we get our approval, and August to submit our stage 1 application. And then during your stage 1 period, you have a 2-year period, 24-month period to pull your main delivery application together. So your stage 1, you're estimating the costs for any future delivery phase and highlighting exactly what you'll do within the preparation period for your stage 2 application. So they would assess that then and give approval to move forward to develop your stage 2. So the development phase is you indicating to the lottery everything you're going to do in your development period prior to the actual redevelopment.
Right. And to continue that paragraph, it reads, the development stage application process ordinarily takes 2 years to complete. And like this, the latest date the delivery stage application would be submitted is August 2027. Why does it take 2 years, up to 2 years to complete?
There's a significant amount of work involved within a lottery application. So we have significant experience of developing lottery fund applications, as do other external organisations that we've worked with. And the lottery do normally advise you take and use that full 2-year period to develop your application to ensure you have sufficient detail to take that through the assessment panel. If there is any opportunity during this period that we can reduce the time, then of course we will 100% look to reduce the time scale. But what I wanted to ensure members were aware within this report that that's the maximum time it could take. So, you know, we could be looking at a 2-year period to develop that application before it's even going into panel. And that's what ordinarily all organisations would, you know, accept that time scale.
So it could take less than 2 years?
Potentially. If we had the relevant information, then we could submit sooner. But there's significant detail they require as part of that application. So you're not only looking at the future works for the building itself, but there's significant what we call activity programme delivery. So all of your consultation, all of your reporting, such as your business planning, etc., to show how that building would be sustainable in future. So the amount of documentation that they expect to receive as part of that stage 2 submission is very significant, and I'm happy to share with councillors, you know, some of the detail around what is expected as part of that stage 2 application, because, you know, we've delivered on these in the past as a regeneration team.
Okay, thank you. Can I take to the next page, 135? And this is in relation to paragraph 3.5, 3.6, 3.7. It's already been referred to by the cabinet member. It says, first one, emergency works were undertaken, Castle in 2022-23, funded by CADO and the council. 3.6, upon completion of the emergency works, the council appointed Purcell to create a management and maintenance plan for the castle to ensure the building is appropriately maintained. And the 3.7, ongoing meetings focusing on the recommendation of the condition survey continue to be held with Purcell and CADO to identify further urgent emergency works that are required to be undertaken in the immediate to short term. Do we have any idea what the costs are involved with that? Yeah.
We ordinarily review on an annual basis. So we do have a management and maintenance plan in place. So that is to ensure that we are undertaking as an authority with operational management responsibilities for that building, that we are undertaking all of our maintenance checks, etc. But on an annual basis, we normally identify any need then for emergency works, where we have in the past put applications into CADO. So we've undertaken temporary works to prevent water ingress into the building. So the past 3 years we've been successful in securing funding for that building. And I think it's fair to say that we have limited the amount of water ingress being experienced, from now compared to 3 years ago. But we usually, review that on an annual basis. But the museum would have a small maintenance pot that they can utilise throughout the year as well.
So who would fund that? How would that be funded? Do the council make a contribution towards that?
We do. For any CADU grant, we have made a contribution towards it, yeah, because we do have a line within our capital programme for the castle. So if there's an opportunity to secure funding through CADU, we will put match in as requested by them. And that rate could vary depending on the amount that we are looking to secure from them as well. There isn't a specific intervention rate on every ask that we put in. But
other monies then would have to be applied for, I don't know, via CADU and other organisations, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. The next question is on page 137. I won't sleep tonight, Mr. Mayor, until I get the answer to this one. It's under 5.4, and it says an agricultural report was commissioned on a review of trees potentially affected by the scaffolding has been undertaken. A total of 8 trees are recommended for removal from the site due to disease, instability, and the impact of the temporary roof on local structures. There is a tree by the side of the museum which became quite famous in August as one of the tallest Christmas trees in Wales. I think it's about 150-year-old. Is that one of the trees likely to be affected? I hope not. Oh, good. Good. I will sleep tonight. And paragraph 6.14, it says there all works are completed by the end of March 24 as agreed with CADU with the exception of repairs to the museum above the basement. Once this work commenced, a number of issues were identified which resulted in discussions with CADU and GGAT and have delayed works on site significantly and resulted in an increase in cost. Do we know what those increased costs are? Have you got a figure?
I think it was around 60 to 80,000.
Right. And obviously the next question is, have we got the funding
We have.
for that?
Yes.
So we're ready to go on that one?
Yeah, it's completed.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, it was the works to the, if you recall, back earlier last year, it was around the end of the financial year, moving into the new financial year. We had issues with the courtyard being accessed. So it was down to those works. We were due to complete all of the works by the end of March. And because of the unforeseen works that were required, I think the works moved into the May. Right. So we had a 2-month extension from CADU, and because of the increase in costs, we covered those from within our capital programme budget aligned for the castle.
Okay, thank you. My last question, Mr. Mayor. The Kawartha Foundation is mentioned a few times in this report. Is it possible to have a complete summary of the work that the Kawartha Foundation has undertaken since its inception? As one of 30 councillors, I'm not fully aware of the whole of the business that takes place with the Kawartha Foundation. And do they have, for example, a forward work programme?
Request that information on what they've done to date, and I would anticipate that they have a forward work programme, particularly now they have a new appointed Chief Executive Officer as well.
So could that be sent to all the 30 councillors?
Yes, I would request for that.
Thank you, Zoe. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Clive Jones. I hope you do sleep tonight now. Councillor Lisa Mitten, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Jones has highlighted one particular aspect that I was concerned about, and that was on 1.1.3 regarding the amount of time that it takes for the development stage post-August 2025 to August 2027. And if I can, and this isn't necessarily a question for Zoe, it may be for the Cabinet Member or it may be for the Chief Exec, but if I can just remind you of a report we had back in 2020, and it says this project requires a sole focus and the retention of a high-level expertise, some of it specialist at board and staff level, drawn from Wales, the UK and beyond. I also note within the body of that report that it also says the Foundation would have the power to improve existing facilities and to construct any new facilities needed, as well as the normal range of powers, including, and it goes on to talk about the different terms that the Foundation has. And then the other thing I wanted to highlight was, it says that, you know, they have a special responsibility with regards to the advancement of arts, culture and heritage, education and the environment in particular, but not necessarily exclusively, by holding, managing, repairing, maintaining, preserving and protecting the heritage and cultural assets and making them available to the public. Now, my concern is, and I'll get to my question, and I've said this before, I've been very vocal about it as somebody who sits on the Cyfarthfa Foundation board on behalf of the council. 2017 is when we've done the special purpose vehicle. If we go to 2027, that's 10 years in the making of this particular development, of which the castle has continued to deteriorate significantly, albeit I understand the work that Zoe and the team have done with Purcell, etc., you know, to mitigate some of those issues, and then some of those unforeseen things with regards to drainage, etc. But my concern is, and I've said this before, I just don't think we're any further forward really in engaging effectively with those experts on the Cyfarthfa Foundation. And I worry, especially with Zoe now having her promotions, congratulations by the way, Zoe, but I worry about capacity that we have, Chief Exec, within that department and the capacity to handle this. It's there really with regards to the 2025 to 2027 timeline. It's another 2 years in the making. We sat here in 2021, 2023, 2024, as our cabinet member clearly outlined, you know, and as the prior administrations. There's no reflection on that. There's no reflection on the department. But this is so vitally important. I've said before, either we need a project manager or we need sole focus, as outlined in our 2020 report, on this to support Zoe and the team as well. And the experts sat on that board. 8 experts who blow me away, as you know. And I just think we need to be better at engaging with that legal requirement that we set out originally with the board. And so I'm putting it to you, Chief Exec, what can we do to support Zoe in this, her team in this, but utilising this expertise as we outlined in the paper?
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Mitten. So myself and Zoe have had a discussion with regards to additional capacity with regards to the castle project, and we are looking at that. In terms of engagement with the Foundation, obviously we have a regular meeting with Geraint Talvin and now the new Chief Executive, and we're looking at outlining a joint programme plan in terms of covering what the Foundation, you know, what work they are covering, and understanding in terms of our critical path for both organisations in terms of how we get to the end product, which is a pristine castle. I think the part of the issue is, and it is frustrating for everyone, but part of the biggest challenge we've got is available finance for this. Obviously, the significant development required, you're looking in the scale of, as you will well know, £50 million plus. And it's obviously, you know, seeking that finance from anywhere we can, which obviously we are doing in terms of from a local authority perspective, and obviously the Foundation are doing their role in terms of looking at where they can seek finance from as well to bring to the table. But obviously our focus is on the immediate repair of the fabric of the building at this moment in time, because that is what is desperately needed. So I think we all share the frustration in terms of timescales, how we move it forward then. Obviously, we're more than happy to have that conversation with Geraint and the rest of the board. And I am more than happy if they've got expertise they can bring to the table and help on giving views on things. I mean, we've done that anyway. We've had joint discussions with board members. We had a recent discussion with Welsh Government, Cadw, and board members where expertise were included in that. So we are trying to make sure that works. But, you know, I agree with you. It's a long time, but this is a big project. And the thing that is most critical to the speed is available finance.
Okay. Can I just come back quickly? Yeah. am I red? Can I go now? I can't remember if it's red or green. Red is go. Thank you. So sorry, Ellis. Yeah, no, thank you for that. I think what we need to drill down to as well is, what we set out in that 2020 report was about executive decisions and autonomy as well. And I don't think we're there. We're still not there in 2025 with regards to the foundation board and ourselves. And we had the wrangle with Alan, didn't he, when he was in office around those legalities and that side of it. And it was really hard. But I just think we need to drill down to that to support, as I said, Zoe, as much as possible, because there really is an armoury of expertise there. So thank you for that. And perhaps we can carry that forward then as foundation board members, myself and the leader. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mitten. Councillor Geraint Thomas, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A couple of questions really around the development stage application. As Councillor Scrivens mentioned, the timeline, it started really in 2017 with the charrette, and Purcell has been on that journey with us almost all the way. So why would it take, if we approve this tonight, why would it take up until August to get a report ready when all the work we've done before? Surely they could knock a report together in minutes, I would have thought, with AI.
Yeah, the two applications, right? So the stage one that would go in August, and the stage two that goes in the 2 years' time, albeit we take that amount of time to do it. They're very detailed. We are ahead of the curve slightly on the works component because we do have a lot of information. We know from this report and all the many reports we've brought through council, all the constraints. We know what we need to look at in terms of conservation from the condition survey. But how this starts to change now is within the HLF application, we're also looking at the long-term sustainable use as well. So there's going to be a considerable amount of work done around the future use of the mansion side, if that's going to be our phase one, and how that can be sustained as well. So not only are we looking at the conservation element, but the future use. And again, they look in a significant detail around that. It's a very competitive process, very competitive. We know lottery funds are reducing, and of course there's more and more demand, particularly for these historic buildings. So we want to ensure that we get these applications 100% right with all of the information that is required in order to meet those panel requirements as well.
Thanks, so. My computer's gone off as I was talking to you then, as well as I could reboot it as we go. Okay, you say about the final use of the castle and what that's going to be. Like in that Ian Ritchie report, there was quite a substantial amounts of works that were in that original report, and back then we were talking £50 million for the castle. So that would have really, it's going to be almost double now, I'd have thought, with all the inflationary pressures that's been put on the country. So what is the maximum amount of money we could hope for to get from the HLF fund?
So from HLF, our ask is going to be for 10 million. You are right. It will be a considerable amount even to take forward phase one. But as the Chief Executive just mentioned, we have started having sort of multi-agency meetings now around the redevelopment of this building and the importance of, us looking to secure funding to take forward our phase one approach. So where we'd apply for the 10 million from HLF, we are looking to other funders then to continue to add to that, to maximise, how much grant funding we'll actually have. And the development will be determined by how much we secure as well. So we'd have to look at how much of the former mansion side we could conserve against how much budget we have then to look at the enhancement and the long-term sustainable use of that part of the building. So the more money that we can get, obviously the more we can do for the building fabric itself, and to look at that long-term sustainable use. So the lottery will enable us to draw in significant amounts of funding from other funders, including your Welsh Government, Cadw, and funders that hopefully the foundation can target that the council aren't able to. I know Councillor Mitton's referring to a report that was brought to council many years ago, but I think in that report it was identified at that point, they have opportunities that we don't have as a local authority. So we also need to look at maximising those opportunities to gather and draw in as much funding as we can as well.
So my last request really from you, Zoe, is, on this journey that you're going to go on now, can we get regular updates for full council? Because, as we can see, this is 8 years in the making now. So, the general public, are on our backs constantly. What's happening with Cyfarthfa Castle?
Yeah, 100%. I think there's something we're very mindful of. We will look to bring regular reports back, and we're also very conscious of the amount of, communication we're undertaking as well. So hopefully we'll look into, build on how much communication we have with the public and share a lot more information as and when we can. But happy to bring reports back as frequently as council would like.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Thomas. Any further questions? No. Any comments, please? Councillor Clive Jones.
Mr. Mayor, it is really disappointing that no real progress has been made on Cyfarthfa Castle in the last 10.5 years since Cyfarthfa High School, the lower part of it, left the castle building. And paragraph 7.3 for me sums it up in a nutshell in the report. And I quote, "As the building is continuing to deteriorate and would deteriorate further if the tent was due to cover the building for a 3 to 5 year period, it has been identified that the phased approach would be more appropriate solution, would result in physical works to preserve the building." So over 80% of Cyfarthfa Castle is empty, and as I said, it's been empty for 10.5 years. It is deteriorating by the day, and this means the longer the delay in carrying out major renovation, internally and externally, the higher the financial cost will be. Hopefully, many light years away from now, all the work will have been completed to a very historical building from the industrial area. But frankly, the pace and the urgency to deal with this is needed and must quicken.
Thank you, Councillor Clive Jones. Councillor Anna Williams-Price, please.
Thank you. As Heritage Champion for the Council, I took the opportunity to visit Cyfarthfa Castle and tour areas that were not open to the public. And this was the first time that I'd seen firsthand the state of deterioration. And it was a shock to see this, as I know the castle, for myself and many residents, will be so intertwined with their childhood memories of growing up in Merthyr Tydfil. And I'm sure, like me, for a lot of people, it'll be the first museum or heritage site of this nature that they would have visited. And it was really saddening to see the current condition of it. However, there's also recognition, I think, of the enormous potential within that building and park. This report proposes a phased approach with focus on preserving that original former mansion house area, and I agree that this is the right priority. We're so lucky to have this castle in the borough, and as we move through the year and celebrate the bicentennial of Cyfarthfa, it's right that we take the opportunity to reflect on the castle's past and, more importantly, ensure focus on its future. And I hope all parties involved, the Cyfarthfa Foundation, Cadw, Welsh Government, National Lottery Heritage Fund, recognise that we must make progress with a renewed sense of urgency to secure a sustainable future for the castle.
Okay, Councillor Lee Davis is now well on screen, so he's going to be leaving the meeting, okay? Thanks, Lee. All the best. Yeah. Councillor Geraint Thomas, please.
We do wish him all the best, right there, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, if I can just refer to a letter I received last July from Geraint Talvin Davis, the chair of the Cyfarthfa Foundation. Further to our recent meeting, I'm right to register the Foundation's increasing concern about the lack of progress with the plan to scaffold Cyfarthfa Castle. More than a year ago, the Council committed to the project with the aim of having the castle protected ahead of the winter of 2024. Without immediate protection, the existing museum service is under increasing threat of closure, and the structural integrity of the building is at growing risk. This is an extremely important project for Merthyr to ensure the jewel in its crown is preserved for future generations. And I think we all, agree with that, don't we? Following a meeting of the Foundation Board on Friday the 12th of July 2024, and various other meetings between the Foundation and the Council management, including Ellis Cooper and Annie Owen, we're concerned about the lack of urgency and the absence of a fixed deadline for delivery of the protective scaffolding. It concerned us that this indicates the project at Cyfarthfa is not a priority for Merthyr Council, thus jeopardising both the work of the Foundation and the future of Cyfarthfa. Now, that letter is last July, so another year is going to go by before we get anything into the HLF. So then 2027, at the worst time, that perhaps we can carry on with that. So we just need to be, put all pressure on all the government bodies that we possibly can to get that funded in place and get that castle protected, to protect it for future generations. So, we will vote for this tonight, but coming to the meeting, we were 50-50, right? But it was the first time, I think, everyone's been positive about the castle, but the pressure is on us now. We've got to get this done.
Yeah, sorry, can I just come in there, obviously, because obviously that letter is a little bit out of context now in the fact of where we are. So obviously we had significant conversations at the time. The time that's taken until now, obviously there was a lot of time spent in terms of the scaffolding or the tenting option. Obviously, as in the report before you tonight, that is deemed not viable, and it was taking a long time to get there. So it's not, it hasn't been deemed a priority. As I said earlier to Councillor Mitten, obviously it's the available finance, which obviously you do know in terms of when you were leader at the time. So we had that debate that, at that point. It's not, everybody sees it as a priority. It's just we're working with what the available resources we've got, and we do have to do everything we can to try and gain more resources to do it. But it's certainly not a lack of effort or focus in terms of trying to do it. So, thank you.
So thank you, Councillor Thomas. Councillor Claire Jones, please.
I bring up 5.11, the bullet point. The first bullet point, there is a spelling mistake there. I just want it addressed, please. You've got though out. Anti-climb boarding and alarms, though out. The structure is required. So can I just have that noted, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Claire Jones. Leader.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, just a quick comment from myself. I think we find ourselves in a position where we're all fully aware of the importance of the Castle School, and there's quite a few of us in this room tonight who went there as the privilege of going there as children to be taught. However, I am a little bit concerned in the fact it's the first time I've heard of this letter which came in from Geraint Talvin Davis back in July 25, and obviously I think perhaps the previous leadership should have maybe pushed it through. However, we're not here to apportion any blame on either side. I think it's a two-way street, and the Foundation, obviously, I think the Foundation and the Council need to have a greater connection, and obviously I'll speak to Councillor Mitten with regards to that going forward, being a relatively new member to the Foundation. So I don't think it's a part of the Council blame in any shape or form with regards to this. I think it's a two-way street, and I think that needs to be addressed going forward, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader. Anybody else want to comments before Jamie comes in? No? Okay. Councillor Jamie Scriven, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Of course, on the redevelopment of the castle, it's a priority, I think, to all the councillors in the room and to officers, you know, in terms of making sure that this is an asset that we continue to improve and will be here for generations to come, not just for the 200th celebration now, but perhaps the 400th, even more than none of us a year, you know, hopefully, and then further on beyond that. Yeah, I echo the leader's comments in terms of the letter. You know, I wasn't aware of it, and hopefully something, if there are outstanding issues that we can chase up outside of full council with myself, the leader, and with Councillor Mitten to ensure that if there are concerns that is addressed. But just in terms of, say thank you to colleagues around the room in terms of the comments and the feedback that you've given. I know I understand there are concerns around the time constraints in terms of the application. Of course, the team and Zoe will be working in any way that they can to reduce that in terms of applying for that Heritage Fund. But, you know, as Councillor Mitten said, also in terms of capacity for our officers, making sure that they're supported. I know, and this isn't just for Zoe, this is for the wider authority itself, that there's, you know, a programme of transformation that's going to be coming up in terms of how we deliver. You know, and there's a wider bit of work here in terms of making sure we're doing the best that we can with our services and we're providing the best service possible. You know, so there are things like that that will be looked at in terms of what we do and how we support our officers. But it's part of a larger piece of work as well. I think it's not just Zoe herself, it's us as an authority. You know, we move forward. And my colleague Anna will be looking over that with senior officers and the wider cabinet team. Yes, we want to make sure that the connection to the foundation is strong. There's a new CEO in place, you know, and as a council, we'll review our progress in terms of the work that we do, but also that friendly scrutiny in terms of the foundation as well, in terms of what work they have currently provided and what they're going to be doing moving forward with their own work plan, you know, and what that's going to look like. And I agree with what Councillor Thomas has said, and I'd like to see that me and Zoe then will work together to ensure that it's not just a report that we're bringing back consistently, but they're informative updates as well. They're meaningful updates to make sure that, you know, we're as open and transparent as we can be with you, with all colleagues around the room, to make sure you're fully aware of what's currently going on with the developments. But they're not just meaningless updates, you know, that these are really, you know, informative reports to make sure that we give you the right information. So just thank you all for your comments. I appreciate everything, and hopefully this is a piece of work that's going to improve as time goes on. We're quite new to the role, and Zoe's new in hers now, so there's little things that we've got to work out, and as we move forward, the team is quite strong. We've got a good relationship, and then we work on that relationship with the foundation to do the best we can.
Thank you, Councillor Scrivens. So we'll take it to the vote then, please, members.
Councillor Gareth Richards, are you for, against or abstaining?
For.
Thank you. Councillor Paula Leighton, are you for, against or abstaining?
For.
Thank you. Could other members please vote? And that's carried, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mona Rosa. Okay, we go on to item 10 of the agenda, which is information reports. Item 10, Cavartha Castle Art Gallery update report, to receive the report of the Director of Education. And item 11, Healthy Organisation Strategy, Workforce Strategy 2024 to 2026, to receive the report of the Director of Governance and Resources. Item 12, Shared Prosperity Fund, has now been moved to the exempt item 17. Item 13, any other business? To deal with any urgent business or correspondence, I have none. And to item 14, to receive communications from His Worship the Mayor, I have none. Other than to say, I was asked before the meeting, if the meeting had gone on a bit long, to have a recess for 5 or 10 minutes for like medical reasons for one or two members. So I just like to ask if this is still needed. Okay, that's fine. Okay. Item 3, exempt. In order for the following to be considered in private, it's suggested that the public be excluded from the meeting on the grounds that it involves the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined in paragraphs 12, 13 under Part 4 of Schedule 12A, Section 100A4 of the Local Government Act 1972. Leader, please.
Move section 100.
Yeah, sorry. Sorry, Mr Mayor. I'm happy to move section 100.
Thank you. Seconder, Councillor Jamie Scriven.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Happy to second.
Thank you. We go straight to the vote on that one, please.
Councillor Gareth Richards, are you for, against or abstaining?
For.
Thank you. Councillor Paula Layton, are you for, against or abstaining?
For.
Thank you. If all members can vote, please. And that's carried, Mr Mayor. So if Democratic Services can stop the recording, and anybody who doesn't need to be present can leave the meeting. Thank you.